Michigan State's most improved unit, is it going to be quarterback this year, or are we going to go to the other side of the ball to find who is going to raise the ceiling a little more? Plus, we're going to talk a few coin toss games. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below what position group you think is going to be most improved this upcoming fall. And guys, if you have any questions, reach out to us, lockedonspartans@gmail.com, or find me on Twitter, Sheehan_sports. I just asked for another round of mailbag questions from you beautiful people out there. And actually, we're going to start this off with one that came from the last round of begging and pleading for mailbag questions. This one comes from Madison. So, Madison, I'm so sorry it took seemingly 15 weeks to get to this one, but this is a question on a lot of people's minds. We were saving this one for just the right time, so here we go. The question point blank was, well, who's going to be the most improved unit on the field this fall? We've gotten many different iterations of this question, so certainly not the only one asking this question. Guys, unfortunately, or maybe incredibly fortunately, I don't know which way to take this. I'll let you guys be the judge of that one. No shortage of options here all over the field. The negative of that is that, yeah, last year was pretty brutal. We all know that by now. But the positive is that, hey, you know what? We can be experiencing a lot of improvement in a lot of different areas on the field this fall. So I know what's going to be the popular answer is quarterback. Heck, I'm very thrilled about the quarterback situation here in East Lansing. I do think there is going to be an improvement, certainly over, no disrespect to these players, Noah Kim, Caden Hauser. Aidan Chiles raises the floor on those guys. Also, too, we got this question last week is, well, shoot, how do we know that Aidan Chiles is going to be better than Sam Levitt? And yes, there could be a world where Sam Levitt does end up having the better college career, but I think with already knowing the offensive system, just like Aidan Chiles does with the coaches he transferred over with, the usage of his legs and the powerful arm, I think that the floor and the ceiling has been raised at the quarterback position. But guys, we're going to take a trip to the other side of the ball here, because I think that there's one other position group that has a little more improvement than even a fresh start at quarterback here. The defense as a whole, they returned 75% of production. That is 20th best in the country. So it's a lot of familiar faces. But where we are going to see improvement with the guys that are still there and added personnel from this spring is the one, the only secondary. That's right, the thorn in Michigan State football and Michigan State football fans' sides. For the last 3 years, they were either last place or second to last place in yards per game in the passing game for their opponents. I didn't have to say that stat. You guys probably know how miserable of a stretch it has been for the passing defense in years past. But hey, this is who we return. Malik Spencer, Dillon Tatum, Chance Rucker. Those first two presumed to be starting safeties. And then Chance Rucker, a guy that got a lot of run last year as a true freshman. Yes, he will be a cornerback this year. So just right there for the returners, okay, you can see that as the first two guys I named, Spencer and Tatum, are going to be juniors, and then Chance Rucker, sophomores. These are guys that are going to take, some big steps forward, barring their health and everything like that. Now, if that wasn't good enough, what they did in the spring, they added Nikai Martinez, guy that started every game for USF, Central Florida, that is. He played everywhere, secondary, nickel, corner. This guy is versatile. They also added another versatile guy in Legend Cavazos from North Carolina by way of Ohio State, former high 4-star recruit. Just like Nikai, he's played a little bit everywhere, but there's also one other addition that was the Cat's Pajamas, the headliner of this transfer portal class, if you ask a lot of people, myself included, at least for the spring window, that is. Ed Woods, out of Arizona State, one of the best Pac-12 cornerbacks in the conference last year. Alabama wanted his services, but Michigan State won that battle. So shout out to Blue Adams, Coach Meat, Joe Rossi, Jonathan Smith for that, because with the floor they already had, it wasn't good enough for them. They built on top of that, and now it is an experienced group that has a lot of versatility in it. And I will pump the brakes a little bit, guys. Like, Does this mean that, oh my goodness gracious, we're going to have the return of the no-fly zone coming up? Like, are we hearkening back to the days of 2013 here in East Lansing? Like, no, I don't think that. But guys, like, they just need to be average. I mean, of course, we'll all take above average, even good. But if they just give us a baseline level of just decent secondary play, that is strides on top of strides forward from where they were in the last few seasons. As a matter of fact, Pick 6 previews, which, by the way, if you haven't already gotten that preview magazine for the college football season, go ahead and do that. Brent Ciancia doing great work over for the Pick 6 previews. He had Michigan State 66 out of 70 Power 4 teams in pass defense last year. So, yes, this is, as you guys already know, it's been brutal, but if you want some numbers attached to it, 66 best pass defense out of 70. Yeah, that's how much room there is to grow. Now, the spring, again, was huge. We're just going to reiterate this. Spencer and Tatum at safety, fine. All right, Chance Rucker, maybe Chuck Brantley starting cornerbacks. Okay, whatever. Angelo Gross starting at nickel. You know what? Okay, that's like a decent floor right there to start. But then, guys, I mean, now this is what we're looking at. With the additions that they've made, Dillon Tatum, Nikai Martinez, possibly starting at safety. Chance Rucker, and now Ed Woods starting at cornerback. And now for the backups at corner, well, you have Chuck Brantley, a guy with a lot of experience. Legend Cavazos is a guy in the 2-deep with experience. That's another backup right there. And then this could also move Malik Spencer down to nickel. My goodness gracious, with Angelo Gross, a guy that, as we all know, plenty of experience, potentially coming off the bench. So they have raised the floor drastically enough in the secondary that I think that's going to be the most improved group coming up. Now, we're going to stick with the defensive side of the ball here because, of course, we have some honorable mentions. We'll talk a little bit about quarterback here in a second, but keeping with the defensive side of the ball, even though they have been the strengths, going into this offseason, I still think linebackers will make a big jump from last season to this season coming up. And sure, it's a bunch of familiar names, right? Like, you have your Cal Hallidays, you have your Jordan Halls, you have your Darius Snows, like names that we already know, but 2 big additions, which once again raises the floor and possibly the ceiling too of this team, like Wayne Matthews, Old Dominion linebacker transfer. Guys, you've heard us talk up and down about him the last few weeks if you listen to the show every once in a while. 10th best pass coverage linebacker in FBS, not just group of 5 colleges, no, the whole Division I landscape. That is according to Pro Football Focus. He is a game changer in pass coverage. And not to bring up last season again, but we all saw what pass coverage looked like from the linebacker crew last year. They desperately needed help, and Jonathan Smith got him almost immediately. I think that if Jonathan Smith was watching film on that flight from Corvallis to East Lansing to, start that introductory press conference, I think by the time the wheels touched down at Lansing Airport, I think he identified that, okay, we'll need a pass coverage linebacker here, and he went and got that. Guys, there's also another linebacker transfer, Jordan Turner, 2-year starter at Wisconsin. Now, look, this was already strength of the linebacker core, stopping the run. That's what Cal Halliday is known for. Jordan Hall, even as a true freshman, decent enough job at that, even as a young gun. But hey, you add Jordan Turner, which that's his strong suit too, stopping the run. You just raise your floor once again in run stopping in a conference that, is going to require a lot of stopping the run here. So that was good work by Jonathan Smith. Now, the offensive side of the ball, as far as returning production goes, we just said Michigan State on defense, top 20 in the nation at returning production. Not the case with the offensive side of the ball. They just have 46% returning production. That is outside the top 100 in the nation. And I got to say, good. Good. I think this is one of the situations where you don't mind seeing a lot of fresh faces on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's the guys on the field, no disrespect, or the coaching staff. A little disrespect there. That was despicable what we saw last year. Anyway, guys, we already talked quarterback right off the rip, okay? You know what? This is going to be a floor raiser, maybe eventually a ceiling raiser for what Aidan Chiles has just immediately as added into this program. Now, another position group we're going to include is the tight end position, both with not just who they added as far as guys wearing the helmet and playing on the field, but the coaching staff too and how they run their offense. Very tight end oriented. And when you have guys like transfer Jack Velling, who Jonathan Smith, not one to over exaggerate in press conferences, said that he believes that he could be one of the best tight ends in the nation. Okay, yeah, we'll take that. And that's just not, a bunch of blind smoke he's blowing up our butts right now. Jack Velling, as many of you know, top tight end touchdown pass catcher in the nation last year. He reeled in 8 touchdowns. That led the nation. Also, guys, Brennan Parachek, we've talked so much about him, but let's not discount Michael Masunis. All right, redshirt sophomore, 6'5", 258, does a little bit of pass catching, a little bit of blocking, and then back for his 7th year of college. And no, I'm not doing a bit. I know that I like to do that sometimes, say, oh, guy's back for 16th year of college. Like, no, Ty Neal Hopper is literally back for his 7th year of college. So it's a pretty healthy room that you have, and it's the first time in a long time that we've had a healthy a healthy tight end room. One other position group we got to get to here in a little bit, but first need to talk your ears off about Gametime, the greatest ticketing app out there. And guys, something very personal just happened in my life. Fred again, my favorite DJ, he dropped a tour date in Detroit, and you know that I will be using Gametime to get my tickets. Now, why? Well, because they make it too easy. It's the flash deals. Let's say a few weeks before the concert, I just want to see what good ticket deals are out there. Gametime has them all over the place. Guys, not just concerts either. We're talking sporting events, comedy shows, theatrical performances. If there's a ticketed event, look for it on Gametime. Also, too, I'm a procrastinator. Let's say that I just forget to buy the tickets until I'm walking up to Little Caesars Arena. Well, hey, their last-minute ticket deals are also second to none in the industry, and Gametime wants to start saving you money right off the bat. They are just hooking it up for you guys out there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. It's this easy, guys. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And before we get back into the mix here, hey, thank you so much for making Locked On Spartans your first listen every single day. Now, for your second listen, hey, go enjoy the Locked On College Football podcast. Spencer McLaughlin, friend of the program. You guys may already know him, but he is hitting it 5 days a week over there, talking about the changing landscape of college athletics, conference realignment, transfer portal, NIL, new college football expanded playoffs, and oh yeah, the games that are about to happen in now less than 3 weeks. That's right, week 0 around the corner. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Part of course, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, as far as improvement goes, I swear I'm not trying to talk out of both sides of my mouth right now because we talked a lot. Like, plenty of you are sick of how often we've talked about this, but the offensive line depth, okay, that's a concern. That could be the weakness of the team. That could be why, over in Vegas, their over-under total is just 4.5. And not just, the gambling people, but the analytics people, S&P Plus, all right, K Ford rankings. They're expecting a low win total for Michigan State. That could very well be why. But here's where, this might even sound ridiculous, is that I even think the starting offensive line could be an upgrade from last year. I will say this, not like the bar is, all the way up sitting on Saturn right now, right? Like, the offensive line play left a little to be desired last year. So as far as starters go, I don't hate how Michigan State is going to take the field in week 1. Like Brandon Baldwin, he returns. Solid season last year, left tackle for him. Christian Phillips, is there a world where, that could be a wash with Geno Vandermark's departure at inside guard? Yeah, I do. Like, Geno was a fine player. I think Christian Phillips can also be a fine player, especially if he played the way he did in the spring showcase a few months ago. That was delightful to see. Tanner Miller, okay, All-American Tanner Miller. I know that Nick Samek was just drafted in the 7th round, but could that be a wash? I very well think so. I think Tanner Miller's a fantastic player. Clearly, so does Jonathan Smith. That's why he brought him over from Oregon State. Now, Luke Newman, FCS All-American from Holy Cross. He played tackle down in the Patriot League, but he's going to bump to inside offensive lineman just because that's how he's built in FBS football. Can that be an upgrade over J.D. Duplain? I think so. And guys, without being way too mean about this next one, but Ashton Lepo, will that be an upgrade over Spencer Brown? Yeah, even with 3 limbs, I think that's going to be an upgrade here. I said I wasn't going to be mean about that. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's going to be an upgrade at right tackle just off the shoot. So you can either have realistically washes at some positions, if not just outright upgrades at the starting offensive line. Now, of course, our issue is with the rest of the line. So when you get behind those starters, you have Dallas Fincher. He has college experience. Everyone else in that room, no, none. None. It's going to be a lot of redshirt freshmen, former walk-ons, maybe even true freshmen. So there is a little concern about the 2 deep, and we all know, especially as Michigan State fans, Injuries in football do happen, so we'll see how it looks when they get to the 2 deep here inevitably. But for now, I don't think it's crazy to say that the starting offensive line unit is going to have a little bit of an upgrade, and that's also going to improve the run game. Now I'm just kind of going off on a tangent here because, the question was what groups improved or what players are going to improve. Well, you have the same running backs as last year. You have Nate Carter back, and you do add K'Ron Lynch-Adams, which I think is a massive addition. I think the run game just as a whole is going to improve. Again, got to say this, the bar's on the floor. They averaged 2.9 yards per carry last year. That was in the bottom 3 for the Big Ten last season. So I know that we all know Nate Carter. I think that just as a total, the run game is going to improve. Partly because, they do a really good job scheming the run game. All right, the last 3 years at Oregon State, they were at least in the top 40 nationally. Even 3 years ago, they were in the top 15 at yards per carry. Whereas Michigan State, they really struggled to move the ball, not just through the air, but also on the ground, as we all know. So, yes, that is what we got for improvement on the horizon. And now as we move to the mailbag here, this is Matt C. Wonderful guy, always comments, always watches. Shout out to Matt C. Part of the Ben Carter fan club, too. So if you ever see him in the streets, he's probably rocking his Ben Carter jersey out there somewhere. That's a joke. I'm sure he just snapped his phone in half listening to that. I'm sorry about that, Matt C. Anyway, here comes the question. How come you give poverty programs like Iowa, Rutgers, Illinois the benefit of the doubt, but never MSU? You and Stephen Brooks really continue to understate how bad the coaching was last year. Matt C., just like Madison's question last segment, we've gotten a few iterations of those comments too, of course. It's like coaching's going to be just this big of an upgrade. We had a comment on a video not too long ago saying that, well, we're not going to lose to Indiana and Iowa, and I think Rutgers was the other team because of, coaching mishaps and errors. Which is fair. Of course it is. Coaching is going to be an instant upgrade, whether it's time management, which, my goodness gracious, was a boondoggle the last few years, or play calling, which, of course, on both sides of the ball, was beyond stale. We already know this, guys. That's going to be an instant upgrade just with the coaching. But this is what I'm going to do now for the next few moments, is play both sides of the aisle here, and also just tell you why that we talk about those games the way that we do. All right, because guys, none of those are walkover games. All right, the Iowa game's certainly not a walkover game. Rutgers isn't a walkover game. Illinois, not even a walkover game. So our job here is to keep us, the fans, focused. I know that we don't play. I know we're not strapping up the shoulder pads. I know that we're not making the bus ride over to Champaign, Illinois in November. But hey, we got to be focused. No walkover games. We are not going to sleep on these opponents. So let's go one by one. I'm going to give reasons why it's going to be a tough game, but also I will give MSU the benefit of the doubt. I will give reasons why MSU could, or if not, should win these games. We're going to start with Iowa. Now, Iowa's going to be tough, right? That's going to be a game Michigan State will be underdogs in, despite it being a home game, despite it being homecoming. Now, why? Well, it's because Iowa's going to be a top 5 defense in the country. They're projecting as a top 5 defense right now, maybe even top 3, depending on who you're reading out there. But they returned 86% of production from last year. That is top 10 easily in the country. Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson, arguably the best linebacker duo in the conference, if not maybe the country too. That is a nasty linebacker duo. That's the story with Iowa. Mean defense, tale as old as time, right? So how can MSU win? Well, Iowa's offensive line could struggle. Okay, yes, they do return 4 of 5 starting offensive linemen from last year, but it's not like they lit the world on fire last year. Their yards per carry, not great. They had a very high sack percentage too. I think 9% of all dropbacks ended in a sack. That was outside the top 100 in the country. And, well, sure, McNamara can't be worse than Deacon Hill. So maybe that opens up the box a little bit. Teams can't load the box with 8 or 9 defenders like they did last year, but still, that was an offensive line unit that did struggle a little bit last year. Now, also why Michigan State can win, we've been saying this, we've been beating this into the ground. Iowa games, for the most part, are just a race to 20 points. Okay, their offense isn't going to do much, but their defense isn't going to let other teams do much. So when games that are a race to 20 points happens, what does that really rely on? Special teams. Punting, field goal kicking, and of course, turnovers like the bounce. These are games that could just be decided between a bounce of the ball one way or another. We saw it last year in Iowa City. Special teams played a massive role in Iowa stealing that game late. A ball bouncing the wrong way certainly killed any chance Michigan State had at a game-winning drive at the end of that game. So, can you tighten up special teams? Well, I think so. Michigan State is going to have one of the best kicker-punter duos in the conference, if not the best going into next year. And turnovers, well, yeah, that's going to be a wait-and-see sort of thing, but it's a home game. It's homecoming, and I'm liking Michigan State's chances a lot more than the metrics do, actually. I know that there are some out there that give Michigan State roughly a 20 to 25% chance of winning that game. Until you know what, like I'm gonna wait to see what our team looks like injury-wise and what Iowa looks like injury-wise before I just scream it from the mountaintops. But that could be your early upset game right there, or your biggest upset coming up this season. Now, Rutgers. Now, why can Rutgers make this a game? Why, arguably will they be expected to win this game, at least right now before the season even starts? Their defense, nasty. They returned 75% of their production from defense. That includes 9 starters, guys. And that was a solid defense last year over there in Piscataway. Their offense returns 3 all Big Ten honorary linemen and running back Kyle Monangai. This guy is impossible to bring down. I'm convinced a school bus could just go at him at 45 miles an hour and he'd still be standing. This kid is a tough runner. And also just, this is weird. Like, this is going to sound so strange to say out loud, but like the vibes that Rutgers can be going into this game with, like there is a realistic shot. I mean, not a likely shot, but a realistic scenario that Rutgers is going for like their 9th or 10th win of the season when they come to East Lansing in week 14. If you don't believe me, go ahead and look at that schedule. That is the softest schedule, arguably, in the Big Ten. Maybe even inarguably, if I could say. But, like, right now, again, their over-under is just 6.5. It would take a Herculean effort to get up to 9 or 10 wins for Rutgers. But nevertheless, this is a long way of saying that they're going to be a good team, and they can be riding into this game with a lot of confidence. That said, why MSU? The Rutgers passing game is, wow, and not in a good way. Their pass offense is going to be, well, let's just put it this way. Gavin Wimsatt, he transferred to Kentucky. I don't know what to do. I don't know if he's hoping to throw the ball over there somehow. But anyway, Minnesota transfer Athan Kalikamakis transfers to Rutgers. He's the presumed starter. That's the same Kalikamakis, if I'm saying that name right. They had a 53% completion percentage last year. And I got to say, whenever I watch Minnesota football, which was like way more than any human being should, it looked even worse than 53%. Like, if it came down to, hey, this kid, transferred to Michigan State and there's no other quarterback, I would trust Ryan Eckley, our punter, to kick the ball to receivers more than I would trust Rutgers starting quarterback to at least complete 2 passes in a row. I'm being really mean this episode, but I think he was atrocious last year. But that's their starting quarterback, so that's got to bode well for Michigan State unless this guy learns how to throw a ball in the 13 weeks leading up to the Michigan State game. Anyway, Michigan State's front 7 against Rutgers' run game, that could make this another race to 20 points. So, of course, just like we said with the Iowa game, MSU's kicker and punter, maybe the best duo in the country, or if not the conference going into next year. Now, the Maryland game. Very early game, and I know we're jumping all over the board here as far as schedule goes. This is the week 2 game after talking about the week 14 game right there. But why is Maryland not an opponent to shake any sticks at? Well, first and foremost, we got a 2-game win streak over our Michigan State Spartans. So hopefully that the guys in the locker room that have been here for those 2 games know not to sleepwalk against the Terrapins. Early in the season, Maryland is the worst time to get Maryland. I know it's been somewhat of a joke in Big Ten circles is that, yeah, you want to play Maryland at the end of the year when they've mailed it in, and you don't want to face them early in the year while they're still trying. Like, that's not a joke. There are numbers to back that up. In the last 3 years, in the month of September, Maryland is 12-1. That one loss was last year on the road, losing to Michigan just by 7 points. Like that. This Terrapin team, under Mike Loxley, turns the burners on in September. So to get them week 2, it sucks. Like, we'll just come out and say it how it is. Like, that absolutely sucks. I really wish that was a November game when, they're just morally and mentally quit the last few weeks of the season. Anyway, now this is going to be really weird to say for Maryland. They've got a really strong defensive line. coming in next year. Like usually when you think of Maryland, you think of, okay, like a pretty solid offense, some really good skill position players, and they still do have those on offense, like, running back Roman Henby, they got wide receiver Ty Felton, but man, they returned 6 guys with experience to that defensive line, a defensive line that just gave up 3.4 yards per carry, good for 20th in the country. So it's going to be defense why Maryland will be good this year, as odd as it is to say. But why will MSU make this a game? Why could this be an early upset for our Spartans? Well, Maryland as a whole, my goodness gracious, they've gotten pillaged on offense. Just 36% of production coming back on offense. They have a 3-man battle for quarterback right now. That could very well bleed into the season in week 2. And you know the saying, if you have 2 quarterbacks that you're deciding to start, you have none. Well, what does that make 3? I don't think they necessarily have an automatic replacement for Talia Tungavailoa from last year. So that's going to be a breath of fresh air, at least for these Spartan eyes over here. And you're going to like this too. All new offensive line. Okay, they got to transfer over from Purdue. They got to transfer from a Division II college that, Penn State had for a little bit. He was a late flip, so he's going to be solid as well. But whole new line. And hey, that's a good time to catch him, actually. Maybe is in week 2 when they're still trying to build the chemistry there. So that's why Michigan State maybe has a fighter's chance when they go to College Park. Now, Illinois. Why should we fear Brett Bielema and Illinois? I'm going to be honest, I don't have a lot for this one, actually. Like, it's a road game. It's later in the season. I think Illinois is off a bye, if I'm not mistaken. I could be corrected there. But nevertheless, like, K Ford is still only giving us a 45% chance of victory. So the best I can do to give Illinois the benefit of the doubt is say that, kind of like what we talked about last week with Sonny Verma, the offensive line can't get any worse, especially under Brett Bielema, a guy that knows how to coach that position very well. Like, they struggled last year. I'm sure the offensive line will be better this upcoming season, but I'm not too inspired by Illinois this year. So, look, they took a big step back with Ryan Walters going to Purdue. All right, that defense that Illinois had 2 years ago, not there anymore. They've lost a lot of guys to the NFL, including from last year's team, Jerzon Newton, a guy that went in the 2nd round, okay? He also had a strong running mate whose name is escaping me right now at defensive tackle, but that was a strength of their defense last year. Not going to be there anymore. So they also lost 2 top offensive linemen. Their wide receiver, the guy that did it all last year for them, Isaiah Williams, he's gone. So I actually don't know how to give benefit of the doubt to Illinois, other than that it's a road game, and I'm sure that their offensive line is going to be fine going in next year. So that's what I got. The other 2 games that are kind of coin tosses, Michigan State actually favored to win these games in many projections. Actually, for unfortunately a lot of projections right now as things stand, the only 2 Michigan State is favored to win. It's a Purdue game. It's an Indiana game. I'll just be really quick with these. Purdue, give them the benefit of the doubt. Like Hudson Card, their quarterback, I think he's going to have a fine bounce back season from last year, his 2nd year in that system. And I just really like Ryan Walters as a coach. I know that year 1 did not go well. No one thought that it would go well for him over in West Lafayette, though. But maybe there's going to be a jump here from year 1 to year 2. What doesn't help them is that they lost their top defensive end in the transfer portal to Texas A&M. But I am a Ryan Walters believer. I don't know if it's going to happen in year 2, but maybe it does. So that's the benefit of the doubt I have for Purdue. And Indiana, just like Purdue, I do love the Kurt Cignetti hire for them. Now, what he's also done is he's brought over 13 James Madison guys, okay? He's also got a really strong quarterback transfer from Ohio, Curtis Rourke, a guy that won MAC Offensive Player of the Year 2 years ago. So I think that he's raised the floor for Indiana right off the bat. But is that really saying a lot? I not to be mean again for the 18th time this show, but I don't really think it takes much to raise the floor on Indiana football from what they had last year. So he has 13 James Madison guys that are going to be ready to play. Obviously, those are all guys that know the system. There's not going to be a lot of learning to do in the offseason. And, by the time Michigan State sees Indiana in November, they'll be hitting their stride right now. We'll see what that actually means, though. They got a lot of holes on that defense. So, yeah, if I just had to give any benefit of the doubt to those 2 teams, that's it right there. Still expect Michigan State to take W's in both of those games. All right, folks. Hope I did a good enough job. I hope that we're not going to sleepwalk through these opponents. But at the same time, I hope I wasn't just a total Debbie Downer there. I hope I did give some reasons why Michigan State is going to have a fighter's chance. If not, a very likely opportunity to get some wins here this season. I'm liking Michigan State going into the year. I know I'm not predicting the Orange Bowl or the Cotton Bowl or anything like that. I'm just, predicting a nice little Sunday 7-5 here. Something nice and relaxing here, but that's still higher than the projections out there. I'm high on our Spartans. I hope you guys are too in Jonathan Smith's first year, and we will be back tomorrow here on Locked On Spartans. Again, guys, just like we said, go make Locked On College Football your second listen, and if you want a third listen, head on over to Locked On Big Ten. But until then, guys, we will see you all tomorrow. Love you all. Go Greg.